Okay, so I'm gonna talk about solutions for EDA ETA. That's the main focus of this video. I'm gonna try to keep it short. So there's been this kind of drama talking about Hildryn, and is incredibly dominant in EDA ETA, and basically there's like some misusing of statistics in that regard. Basically, like we should need to nerf Hildryn because of this, which is incorrect, obviously. Um, it's just that EDA and ETA suck. And I'm overjoyed to hear the sentiment from the community because I have hated EDA and ETA forever, but I don't like being a negative source of information, so I try to avoid talking about that. Yeah, I despise this game mode, and so instead of violently complaining, I'm going to just propose two pretty simple solutions that I think would fix this game mode basically in a weekend. I do think that it comes at the sacrifice of the quote-unquote difficulty, which I don't think is real. In the context of Warframe, it's just poorly done. I think that this randomness mechanic is a poor foundation to build difficulty on, and so it was never going to work, in my view. Now, is that okay? Yeah, that's okay. It's still an interesting game mode. It gives you some incentive to play different things, which I think is good. So, thank you for the support. Love you guys lots. Let's move on. Next slide. So, just add more options. That's basically it. Now, like, granted, again, I think my secondary solution here is just better. So just stick with me in this regard. But yeah, 2 new options need to be added to the Warframe and weapon set both. So 5 options for Warframes, primaries, secondaries, and melee. That's basically it. And then double the amount of modifiers from 4 to 8, except you only need 4 to get max rewards. So currently, it's just really simply way too easy to get spit roasted, crossfired by negative modifiers and Warframes, and weapon choices as well. If you roll unlucky in your Warframe, that sucks a lot. But sometimes you get a stronger weapon, sometimes you don't. Sometimes the strong weapon you got, or usually the strong Warframe you got countered by a negative modifier. Those are all huge problems. Additionally, most of the modifiers are really, really uninteresting. And so that super sucks. Basically, the goal of more options, it just means that you're less likely to get suffocated numerically, right? Obviously, having more options is good. It does dissolve some difficulty, but this was never really difficult in the first place, in my opinion, right? You're basically, what you're doing here is creating what I think was the goal. Currently, when you queue up for EDA, ETA, what you do is you pick Hildryn or Dante. Or if you got lucky with your Warframe, you grab that. If you got a strong weapon, you grab that. Otherwise, you are just being like, oh, I'm playing Hildryn and Dante. Which weapons are today? Let me equip those. Never use them, and do all modifiers. Because like this game is meant to like incentivize creativity and like playing things you don't normally play. But you actually have to turn on every single negative thing in order to get all the rewards. That's bad design. That doesn't feel like what the game was intended to have happen. So basically what the goal is here is if you have more choices, you basically create a more interesting arsenal phase, right? You're going to take some certain modifiers on the chin. You are going to be like, oh, I can actually lean into this modifier because my Warframe doesn't use X mechanic, right? So like the shield recharge one, like lead lethargic shields, like you can be like, oh, I'm playing a health frame, or I'm playing a shield gate frame, so I'm able to get the shields back right away with my abilities, right? Using brief respite or whatever. You can basically observe what you've got on you, and then you can go from there, which is like way more exciting. One of the biggest problems I think you will have to address here is that a lot of the modifiers are just bad. Like they're just badly designed. Some of them, again, just neuter you. Like I think gear embargo is really aggressive. And like draining energy is pretty boring. But a lot of them just like snipe out certain playstyles, which will be less of a problem with more options. But then it's like they're just duds. Right, so we just have to add more compelling debuffs. I think one of my favorite things in this game actually are the stickers in ETA. The stickers are super fun. One of them is called Optimism. Optimism basically just has you need to keep moving, or otherwise you freeze yourself solid. And at the end of the mission that you had Optimism equipped for, you get a Pix chip. Right, I think that's just really good design of a sticker, of a mechanic, of something to keep your mind on. Always be moving. You get a little reward for it, but it's semi-challenging, and that's like a good modifier. I think that stickers and modifiers should share similar design spaces. I think they do a really good job. So yeah, obviously just add more options. What's like the real exciting solution here? So I had an old script where I reworked all of EDA and ETA. And basically I came up with this mechanic called Archimedia tokens. So I'm just going to pull that from this. The biggest problem left behind by adding these options is that essentially players are left with no real incentive to take any additional burdens, which is boring, right? Again, if we want some sort of difficulty, some sort of like actual reward here, right, for like challenging yourself, that wouldn't be present if you added. Again, I do think that 5 Warframe options and 5 weapon options for each is generally, especially with the debuffs, is generally going to be enough to create like, okay, I can make something happen here. And for the average or for the above average player, and then a lot of average players, I can make something happen here generally means that you're going to be good for the mission, and it's not going to be too sufficiently challenging, which is like fine. I think that making this game mode challenging is just a bad choice because it's a bad foundation to build off of. I think that this concept is kind of bad. It's interesting, and I like it for being interesting, but I don't like it as a difficulty method, right? So that's just my personal opinion. Archimedia tokens is this idea. And basically the way they work is when you take more negative modifiers on than you need to for max rewards, you gain Archimedia tokens. And this would basically purchase the ability, you'd wallet them up, right? You'd store them from, maybe you get like a really good roll and you can take every single modifier. And you store a bunch of these tokens. You can use the tokens later in a different week or in a different game mode, ETA versus EDA, and you'd be able to basically just buy your way past certain modifiers, or buy your way past Warframe, right? So like, or purchase positive modifiers. That was a crazy idea I had. I think it'd be super fun. The goal here is that like every 2 to 3 Archimedias, or it was 2 to 3 weeks essentially, right? You would be able to just bail yourself out of a shit roll. You can what's called brick, which bricking happens all the time. That just means you rolled nothing worth using and you're gonna have to get carried now. Because there is this like illusion somewhere that like someone's gonna run suboptimal Archimedia. You're smoking crack if you think I'm not giving those Archon shards. Like, don't be stupid. So the goal here is basically, I got really unlucky with my rolls here, even with my 5 Warframes, right? Especially if you're a newer player, this can happen very easily. But luckily, I got some good rolls in the last weeks. I'm now able to play the Warframe I actually want to play. That's pretty good, right? That's pretty cool. Like, the thing is, like, no one's, again, we're talking about Hildryn in this slide before, right? No one's playing Hildryn because they want to play Hildryn. Hildryn is boring as shit, in my opinion. Like, pretty interesting gameplay loop and idea conceptually, but boring to play mechanically. And so, you basically have reasons to play frames that are not Hildryn, Dante, Valkyrie, Revenant, and that's kind of awesome. Another reason these Archimedia tokens are really cool, again, besides like positive modifiers and just like taking sweat off your back, if like you have like a good set of pretty cringe modifiers and not the best way, like you're able to kind of like smooth out your experience, is say you roll like a mirror defense or a solstice square defense and you're like, I actually super duper want to defend this objective. You would be able to take off the Warframe negative modifier, the RNG Warframe. You'd be able to play, you spend your Archimedia tokens and you'd be able to play Frost really easily, right? That's kind of another big reason for it. It's like you're kind of pulling out like a stop, right? You're pulling out you're forking over some money over to Kaya. That way you can defend Temple better. Essentially, that'd be like the gimmick, essentially, right? Yeah, these are basically with more options, and then Archimedia tokens acting as a incentive to take on more burden that these more options would alleviate, essentially. So Archimedia tokens acts as a solution to lessening the difficulty and lessening the incentive to grab more stuff. And Archimedia tokens is a endless, potential of making this game mode way more compelling. One thing I would not do, which I had in the original script, is like adding actual like maybe Archon shards with Archimedia tokens, because the problem is what players would do is they would just save the Archimedia tokens for that. They would never use it for the reasons that I would want them to use it for. So the Archimedia tokens just being used to modify your Archimedia runs, I think would be like all I want from that mechanic. I think it would be really simple, but also do like a really amazing job. Yeah. So that was like the 10 minutes of positive, constructive conversation. Let's complain. I want to complain a little bit. So again, randomness in this game mode is not difficulty. Randomness is a game mode in like stuff like Risk of Rain 2, Slay the Spire 2. Like, these are game modes where randomness is built in. It's an integral part of the game mode, and it is balanced around violently. I've always wanted difficulty in Warframe, and I love roguelites, but this is just a bastardization of everything I want. I want difficulty, this sucks. I love roguelites, this sucks. And it's just like, okay, you're just like spitting in my face and pissing on me. Like, that's really lame. Also, I play Warframe generally to play certain frames with certain weapons, with certain synergies. Each frame kind of has their own distinct game plan, which I really enjoy. Also, being forced into a frame already stinks. I don't get to use the weapons that I plan to synergize with, which is really lame. I get the appeal of like wanting to use different Warframes, but this, again, the options are too limited, and even then, like, I'm just not a huge fan of the premise. I think if I had more options, I'd be singing a different tune, but I've been dealing with the 3 Warframes for so long that I'm kind of just a spiteful bitch about it. Regardless, again, you kind of just feel canned up no matter what. Additionally, for new players especially, for me this applies less because all my Warframes are invested in and have a lot of good weapons. Again, even if I have a lot of good weapons, I still brick the weapon very often. People's Warframes and weapons are so variant in strength, both because some weapons are just weaker than others, but also because like you only get if you're a newer player, you only get so much forma, only get so many reactors, catalyst, whatever. Like you can only invest so much. Right, and so like you have this time gated resource, which is time gating is frustrating, but I know why it's done here. I'm not really here to complain about that. And so like, yeah, the player, the second they unlock EDA ETA, they need to be able to do every single one, right? Because it's time gated. There's no other way to get that many Archon shards that quickly. And so they're gonna have to run in there with like their, I don't know, default plinks, default mag, like just get rolled. And then when they try to expand their arsenal, they actually dilute their weapon and frame pool, so they get screwed over more, actually, which is hilarious. And again, the modifiers are just bad generally. Most of them are really lame. They are either completely like redundant and don't affect your Warframe at all, i.e. Hildryn, Dante. They snipe the shit out of your playstyle, or they're just generally like drop nukes on your forehead. Like again, I'm cool with like, again, if there are more options, I think I'd be fine with, again, like gear embargo hurts a lot because like I use gear to counter my bricks, to counter like rolling bad frames and weapons, right? My on call, my arc gun, stuff like that, necromech. So yeah, that's it. This was a short one. I try to keep it nice and short. Love you guys lots. Thank you for the support. Next video is going to be a weapon of the week. Yeah, love you guys lots. Talk to you soon. Catch you on the flip. Like, sub, all that crap. See you later. Peace, peace.